brother, these are the rumors that's going on, but what we need to do?
Yes.
Look into them.
That's right.
Do a second part of this show,
Yes.
and we need to bring these things to the forefront.
I agree, brother. There's nothing, to hide. I think it has to be brought to the forefront. We've learned from, again, as you mentioned, our great scholars, from Brother Del Jones to Brother Steve Coakley and many more that talked about these interlocking relationships, these friendships, these kinships, these sinships, these secret societies, these Masonic relationships, some demonic relationships, and then tying that into these organizations that you and others have talked about. And because many have said that perhaps they were trying to manipulate this case to create a race war within America so that they could declare martial law, as they were plotting to do with the assassination of Dr. King. Already have agent provocateurs among our people throughout the 50 states so that they could lock the country down with everything that's going on right now on an international level around the dollar and the economy. So clearly we always have to look at it from more than just one perspective and be willing to think outside the box, and always ask, when we see these types of incidents and events occur, who's benefiting? And I think that's a real question to ask. So thoughts and comments on that, brother?
Well, you know something, brother? I said to myself, it's a spit in the face.
Yes.
To our good sister, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, who put in over 40-something years dealing with racism,
That's right.
white supremacy. For these people, both black and white, so-called Americans, to step up and got the gall and the nerve to say this is not about race. Let me read you something real quick.
Please.
It says George Zimmerman knew nothing about Trayvon Martin. Never heard of him, but he thought he knew him.
Right.
Now, he says all Zimmerman had to see was a young black man in a hoodie walking home with a snack.
Right.
And he knew that Trayvon Martin was a quote-unquote suspect.
Yes.
He says he knew he knew Trayvon Martin was an effing punk. Now, this is what he said.
Yes.
He says he knew Trayvon Martin was an effing a-hole. Right? He says, now this was his words.
Right.
And based on that, Zimmerman got out of his car, stalked Trayvon Martin, pressed a 9mm pistol up against his hoodie,
right,
on the right side of his chest, pardon me, and fired a hollow point bullet into Trayvon Martin's heart, killing him instantly.
That's right. Yes,
He
sir.
says Zimmerman never showed any remorse for killing Trayvon Martin. Not when he pulled the trigger, not when he told the police, not when he was in the courtroom. Never did he show remorse.
That's
because
right.
all he kept doing is referring to Trayvon Martin as the suspect.
Right.
Later on, it says that Zimmerman, which was never really brought out, Zimmerman was quoted as saying this was God's will for him to kill Trayvon Martin. Now, that's a whole different thing.
That's what
when he says this is God's will.
Right. Well, we saw that with former President George Bush, baby boy Bush, that always talked about manifest destiny. You know what I mean? That it was God's will for him to go and conquer the Middle East. Right. So we see that taking place and manifesting. Thoughts and comments, I think, on, again, as you mentioned, the president, but again, talking about the Department of Justice and with all of the corruption that was coming out of that Sanford Police Department, that many and several of those officers, I counted at least 10 officers were at the scene when Trayvon was killed, but many of them were allowed to leave the force and take jobs elsewhere in the state of Florida, but none of them were ever placed on the witness stand. So it would be incumbent upon the Department of Justice to go down, as long as the federal government to basically seize that police department and put all of them under charges. But yet we have not seen those kind of actions coming out of Washington, D.C. So thoughts and comments on that, brother?
That should be the thrust, Brother Darren,
yes, sir,
of the President of the United States, Eric Holder, and everyone else. That should be the thrust of it.
Right.
And they have the information like you and I have the information.
That's right.
Simultaneously, stop and frisk was going on at the same time.
Yes, in New York.
And stands your ground.
That's right. Yes, sir.
So in one part of the country, you can stop and get frisked.
Right.
But in another part of the country, the sister took the gun, defending herself, shot a couple shots in the air.
Right. Marissa Alexander.
No, you're not hearing me.
Yes, sir. Right.
She shot in the air.
Right. In
and
Florida.
got 20 years.
Right. That's right. In the same state. Now, the president has the right to pardon.
State.
He has the right to pardon. And so here's an opportunity to pardon his sister. But, of course, he didn't get involved with the Scott sisters in Mississippi for an $11 crime. So we'd be hard-pressed to believe he's going to inject himself into the state of Florida. He would tease you but never please you in terms of giving us justice. But you've talked about that in the Obama Deception 1 and now Obama Deception 2. Thoughts and comments on that? Because I heard our brother Umar Johnson on an interview last night, and he said that unfortunately black people, through our self-negation, self-hesitation, and subjugation, are allowing now our desecration and denigration and disintegration in terms of our rights in this country under the black president. So therefore, we don't want to, move. So as Dr. Collins said, if we don't move, we're going to be moved on. And right now, we're being moved on, brother. So thoughts and comments on that.
Exactly. And we're being disarmed.
Yes, sir.
Because there's someone that looked like us in the White House.
Right. That's right.
And
yes,
all
sir.
those things that we would go after. And this is a sad reality that rests with our people, man. Just because it's someone that looked like us, we don't think that we have to work and that person is going to speak for our better interest. And they don't.
That's right. Yes, sir. Clearly.
They don't. He didn't. Minister Farrakhan said that he never rode in on the platform of a black agenda.
That's right. Yes, sir. That's right.
He already knew, and they already calculated that the fact that the majority of black people would vote for Barack Obama because he looks like us.
That's right. Yes,
but
sir.
what about the agenda? That's all the question I raised in the Obama Deception Part 1.
That's right.
What about the agenda?
That's right.
Now, the Obama Deception Part 2, I asked the same question. But this time, I went over the non-accomplishments and the moves that Barack Obama made in his first term.
Yes.
And we outlined all the things that he said he was going to do and did not do.
That's right.
And all the things that black people lost during the first administration, during the first term.
Yes, sir.
And it's sad. And I'm telling you, brother, you and I both know where this particular thing is headed. I don't know if black people want to hear it.
Right. But I think we have.
But it has to be said, man,
yes,
where
sir.
this thing is headed, man.
Yes, clearly. I think you have to have those that's willing to be awake and to be the sages and be able to see the visionaries based on history is cyclical in nature. And as the Most High Elijah Muhammad said, of all of our studies, history is best qualified to reward those that do their research. So, everything it goes around in circle in terms of history. And so here we are looking at this. But I would remind them that when Rome fell, I believe they had a black man who was the emperor of Rome. The last emperor was a black man by the name of Septimius Severus. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So if I know I'm going down and I need to kind of extend my empire a little longer, I'm gonna get a black man.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I mean, it's again part of that psychological and covert a war on the minds of our people, but it's not just the minds and hearts of our people, but black, brown, red, yellow, and white. And many brothers and sisters, Griff, are saying, and when we look at the John Coleman's book, The Committee of 300, that all that we see going on in America comes right out of those 21 manifestos or goals of the Illuminati when we talk about what we're seeing in this country right now. Thoughts and comments on that?
And you and I have spoke about that extensively. And we've talked about it on numerous occasions in different forms, different lectures on the air.
Right.
We've seen it in print. We've seen other people reproduce these Facebook clips and all this kind of stuff and pass it on. So people know.
Yes, sir.
It's just that the average person doesn't know. But listen, Brother Darren, the average mom and dad out there fail to realize that America's agenda when it comes to young black men like Trayvon Martin, the agenda is schools to prison pipeline.
That's right.
To mass incarceration. That's exactly what it is. Every leader has talked about this. So the brother had asked me, where is the outrage with black people about black people killing one another? Did Minister Farrakhan not go on all men speaking tour, stop the killing?
That's right. Yes, sir.
So what are these people talking about?
Yeah.
Have not leader after leader, speaker after speaker spoke to this particular thing? But who's listening, though?
That's right. Who's listening, brother? And then following up on that. But they may be some of the ones that's listening to the likes of a Bill O'Reilly. But of course, he was silent about that thug Whitey Bulger up there in Boston. He killed at least 20 people. And you ain't hear Bill O'Reilly say nothing about Whitey Bulger. And two of the people that was working for Whitey Bulger were FBI agents. But O'Reilly ain't say nothing. And they just killed a witness who was supposed to go on the witness stand last week. He ended up dead. So but you didn't hear O'Reilly say anything about Whitey Bulger up there in Boston.
Not one word. Whitey was reaping havoc in Boston.
Right. And Whitey and YT, as our brother YT didn't say anything about Whitey in terms of the havoc he was reaping in Boston. So they talk more about the so-called Karnov or Sarnoff brothers who was supposed to be in the Boston Terror, but they ain't said a word about Whitey Bulger. You understand? So unless you see their hypocrisy, man,
But listen, you know something, hypocrisy indeed, but yet we know of the ones he did kill. We don't know the ones that he didn't kill.
That's right. Yes, sir. Clearly, we don't know of that. So, again, family, just tuning in, having a conversation with my brother and friend, Brother Professor Griff. Of course, brother, can't begin to wrap up at all without asking your thoughts and comments back on July the 4th, 22 days to this day. There was the release, to my knowledge, in this country, a CD that was released that you could download from Samsung Galaxy of Jay-Z's Magna Carta Holy Grail. And there's a lot of information just in that Magna Carta Holy Grail. And again, coming out on July the 4th, Independence Day, some people think that was just an accident or an incident. Thoughts and comments on the signs and the symbolisms just in that before we get into this Magna Carta?
It's a little deep to go in the time that we have, good brother, but you know as well as I know, as well as your faithful listeners, there's no such thing as a coincidence or accident on how these people plan to release these the throne.
That's right.
We got to tie it all together. We got to go back to the blueprint. The blueprint. Three.
That's right.
Then we got to go back to Blue Ivy. Right. See, if we string it all together, we'll look at it in the way we should look at it, good brother.
That's right. Yes, sir.
You understand? Okay, let's tie in the Samsung piece now.
That's right.
Why when you buy the phone, you get the album for free?
That's right.
Okay, so you take the phone like they did with the headphones, you press it up to your ear, to your face. Now the vibratory frequency, the frequency, all right, is there in your ear. You can't help but get it because it comes with the phone. Whether you're into hip-hop or not, hell, I just want a new phone.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Why I got to get the album?
That's right. Yes, sir. Come on, bro.
On one level, they're showing us that this is the way business is going to be done. If you're not tied into the multinational corporations by the communication network, which you've got to look up Bill Clinton's communication thing that he signed off on.
1996. So,
right?
Yes, sir. That's
right.
Right.
So
come on.
Keep that in mind.
Yes, sir.
Now we're looking at all the cell phone companies.
That's right.
Guess who's going to be the new label?
Come on, bro.
T-Mobile going to be the new label now.
Yes, sir. That's right.
Samsung's going to be the new label.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So we're tying into communication thing. Right. Now you're really about to get censored. Your children are about to get attacked on a different level.
That's right.
If you buy the phone, the frequency is already there.
That's right.
The information is already via their control puppet named Jay-Z.
Yes, sir. Come on, brother. And
we can explain that a little bit deeper at another time, but because the numbers do add up and they do tie in.
They tie in
to what we've always been talking about.
That's right. And just the word Magna Carta, the Great Charter. You say, so what charter are they talking about? You know what I mean? And then he says that there are no more rules, there are no more laws. So, we're mindful of the video in which he did, of course, wearing the Alex DeCrowley T-shirt or the words of Alex DeCrowley talking about do what thou will. So this is what we're looking at, not just in hip-hop, but in this country right now. It's almost as if there is no law and they're rewriting these laws, but tying it back into the king of England and, of course, the recolonization, not just of America, but the world right now. Thoughts and comments on that?
But listen, we have to finish the quote. It's the do what thou will, which is the whole of the law.
That's right, the whole of the law. That's right. Yes, sir.
That's going to be the law because it comes from the book of the law.
That's right. Yes, sir. That's right.
They don't follow the same book that we follow, man.
That's
but we keep thinking everyone has the same book. No, they rewrote and revamped and remixed the book that we go by.
That's right. Come on,
well, they want the masses of black people to go by the King James Version of the Bible, the 1611.
That's right.
You understand what I'm saying? They go by a whole different book of the law, man. And we need to understand that.
Yes, sir.
We truly do.
We have to. It's a must. Again, family.
But listen, with this book signing, I think we need to go deeper into that when we do the book signing, so people can get this face to face. And in person.
Yes, sir. That's very important. We're going to link up, of course, later on today, and we'll set up a date and time that we can have you come back in to definitely do the book signing. But talk about, before we begin to wrap up, because there is a mass awakening of the masses, but we have the quickening quicken the awakening of the masses, where young people are now wanting to know more about, as we talk about these organizations, these interlocking corporations and groups that seem to have a control over the United States and, of course, over the masses, people of the world. And, of course, you remember Obama's handler, Zbigniew Brzezinski, saying just that in terms of the awakening of the people that's taking place on this planet and how they can either kill them because they will no longer be able to control